Coming up on FYI, we quiz the politicians in charge of our education. Will there be more free school meals? And how do they plan to stop our teachers striking?
And find out what happened when young footy fans took over the Sky Sports commentary of a Premier League football match.
Happy New Year and welcome back to FYI, the weekly news show where we bring you all the latest info on all the big stories.
So as we headed back to school, you may have seen some stories about teachers threatening to go on strike over their salaries and demands for more free school meals as families struggle due to rising costs.
Well, our schools and how good they are is down to the decisions made by the politicians in charge.
We asked two senior politicians who oversee our education to take our questions. They agreed. Here's Jariah and Scarlett with an exclusive report for FYI.
These two women have one thing in common. They want to make our schools and education better. One has the power to make the changes. The other wants her job. This is Gillian Keegan. She is a member of the Conservative political party, which is in government, and Gillian is in charge of our education in England. Other parts of the UK have their own education ministers. And this is Bridget Phillipson. She is a member of the second largest political party, Labour, and they want to win the next election to become our next government. As Shadow Education Secretary, it's her job to hold Gillian to account.
There's been no action to support families. Why not?
We have actually taken a lot of action in this area.
One of the biggest issues facing pupils right now is the rising cost of everyday needs. Millions of families are struggling to pay the bills and buy food. Yet in England, only certain pupils are allowed free school dinners. There's been growing demand for free school meals for all, so why isn't the government doing that?
So if you gave it for everybody, then that means a lot of people who don't need it would get it. What you're trying to do is make sure it gets to the most disadvantaged people. And then the other thing that we put in was free school meals for all infants. And now we've just put in breakfasts in those areas that are more deprived.
Scotland and Wales are miles ahead of England in getting free school meals, so when are we going to follow their lead? I mean, do you think we'll follow their lead?
No, because they're doing it for everybody, so that gets back to people who don't need it. Does that mean you won't be able to do something else?
But what did the Shadow Education Secretary think?
What we've said right now is that we would make sure that every primary school child in England has access to a breakfast club, because we know that it's a real concern that lots of children are arriving at school not ready to learn because they haven't had a good start to the day.
But just as important, as breakfast is, doesn't it just seem like you're willing to pay for the cheapest option?
I know that even if I have breakfast, I'm still starving by lunchtime, and that just doesn't make sense. Surely you should pay for every child's school meals.
I would love to be in a position to do more on this, but as you'll know, obviously we're in a very difficult situation right now as a country where it comes to the economy, and I'm only able to commit to things where I'm absolutely confident about how we're going to pay for that. And right now, because the economy is in such a difficult position, it's really hard to make, those kinds of commitments right now.
So unlike Scotland and Wales, which run their own education system, the government is not introducing free school lunches for all pupils in England. But they are for younger children, and there will be funding for more breakfast clubs for all pupils in deprived areas. And if Labour was in government, they wouldn't provide free school lunches for all pupils either. Instead, they would introduce free breakfast for all pupils, which is cheaper. In the last few days, the Prime Minister announced that he wants us all to study maths until we're 18 years old. But what about new subjects? Many of you have written to FYI complaining that the lessons we get at school have hardly changed since our parents were in the classroom. I know that me and Jariah and loads of my friends would love to learn about other things like climate change and maybe finances. Our world is changing, so why isn't our curriculum changing too?
Well, the curriculum has changed actually a fair bit. We are introducing a new GCSE, which is something we agreed to do at COP26 when we hosted the climate change conference here, which is natural history. There are, geography as well. The curriculum's, obviously developed quite a lot to look at impacts of climate change.
We put the same question to the Shadow Education Secretary.
I do think our curriculum needs to be reviewed, and I think it is important that it reflects the needs and wishes of young people right now, but also in a bigger sense about what young people will need to learn for later in life as well.
So do you think you would consider changing up the curriculums? Being a black boy myself, learning more about Black History Month and slave trade.
We're always looking to improve and make sure that people learn more about each other, so they're more tolerant of other people's views.
I would want to make sure that we've got a broad and balanced curriculum, but also a really enriching curriculum where young people get opportunities to really develop as individuals.
As the cost of living hits families, teachers are among a growing number of workers asking for better wages, and a government offer of a 5% rise has been rejected. Now, teachers across the country are threatening to strike, basically refusing to go to work on certain days.
What are you willing to do to stop our schools from being closed down by teacher strikes?
I really don't want schools to close through strikes. I know that all of you have missed out on a lot of your education because of COVID. That's why if I were Education Secretary, I'd be absolutely determined to try and get a compromise.
We're going to pay the teachers a rise, which is between 5 and 8.9%, and it is seen to be the fair approach.
Well, do you think you'd give them more than what the current government is offering of 5%? I mean, they work so hard, they deserve more than 5%.
Labour from government last time around, we made sure that all of our staff in our schools were getting a good pay deal, so that's teachers and its support staff too. I know they worked really hard during the pandemic and they feel that the government didn't recognise their contribution.
Do you think that teachers deserve and need a 12% pay rise?
I think teachers are absolutely right to argue for a pay rise because their pay year on year over these last 12 years has gone down.
To help with the rising cost of living, teachers want a 12% pay rise and may go on strike soon if they don't get it. But the government seemed to be standing firm on a rise of between 5 and 8.9%. We couldn't pin down the Shadow Education Secretary on a figure she thinks teachers should be offered.
Well, thank you so much for speaking to us. We really appreciate your time.
It's been wonderful to meet you too.
Thank you.
Teachers in Scotland have already staged strikes over their salaries and schools were forced to close. Now teachers in other parts of the UK are about to decide whether they will go on strike too. But is it fair for teachers to go on strike and force our schools to close?
Well, it's time to get your shout on this. We're headed to Barnet in North London, the second largest London borough, to hear from an FYI News Club at Southgate School.
I don't think politicians are really focused on improving pay for teachers.
I'm sure that if they were a teacher, they'll probably really want higher pay or something.
Yeah, that's fair. I think teachers should get paid like the same as doctors, because doctors, they're saving lives, but teachers, they're kind of building on someone's life.
They do a lot to support students and make sure they have a good education and do well in the future, and I think that should maybe be recognised a bit more.
For the interests of the student should be more important to the teacher than money.
Then again, it is their job, so they need to make a living wage.
Imagine you're getting a job and you're not getting paid what you think you should, then that's a problem.
Strikes are a drastic measure, but they work in some cases. And so if people aren't being paid enough for their job, they have the right to strike, they have the right to demand more money.
I don't think it's fair that they're going to go on strike, because then that ruins our learning time.
I feel like it's a very selfish thing to do, in my opinion. I think there's better ways.
Like what?
Maybe protests.
But a strike is a protest, isn't it? A strike is a way to grab attention by saying, I'm not going to do this job until you pay me more. And the government needs these teachers to work. I don't believe there's enough teachers in certain areas. And so if they go on strike, the government will have no choice but to pay them more.
Check out this story that we spotted, but is it fake news or fact?
This British island apparently celebrates Christmas 12 days after the rest of the world.
Residents of this remote island near Scotland celebrate Christmas Day on the 6th of January and New Year's Day on January 13th.
But is this fake or fact? Find out later on.
So have you guys made a New Year's resolution to be healthier and eat more vegetables?
Have you?
Well, I'm sure my mum would like me to.
Well, there's one vegetable that you might be happy to see the back of after Christmas, and that's the Brussels sprout. What's your opinion on them, Braden?
If I'm going to be honest with you, I think they're not very nice, they're bitter, and they're kind of like a snooker ball, so I'm not a fan.
Well, I can happily say that I disagree with Braden, and I love Brussels sprouts. But why is it that so many of us hate Brussels sprouts but our parents love them? Well, we're going to ask an expert.
We're joined by Rosemary Collier, who's a researcher at Warwick University, and she's been looking into the science behind why we either love or hate Brussels sprouts. Hi, Rosemary.
Hello.
So we've actually read that there's an area in the UK used for growing Brussels sprouts that's the equivalent to 3,240 football pitches. I mean, that's a lot. Why are we growing so many when they just don't taste good?
Well, one of the reasons why they don't taste very good is due to a chemical that they contain that makes them taste bitter. And in fact, about half of the population can detect that bitter taste and the other half of the population don't. So maybe you're in the part of the population that they do taste bitter.
So why is it that so many of us hate Brussels sprouts, but our parents love them?
There's some evidence that your taste buds change as you grow older, and that young people, children, are particularly sensitive to the bitter taste. So as you grow older, you probably get to like Brussels sprouts more.
So are they really that good for us?
They're very good indeed for you. They're full of vitamins and minerals, and they contain as much vitamin C as oranges do.
It's good to know that they're good for you then, so thank you so much for your time, Rosemary.
You're very welcome.
So have you seen this wandering walrus? This big fella, nicknamed Thor, attracted a crowd of thousands when he popped up in Scarborough, and this guy actually led to the New Year fireworks being cancelled.
He then swam more than 70 miles north and was spotted in a harbour in Northumberland. It's hoped he's making his way back to where he should be, which is in the Arctic. Experts say he is healthy and he just wanted to take a wander down the English coastline.
Now, do you fancy shark spotting from the comfort of your own home? You heard me right, because volunteers are being recruited to identify sharks, skates and rays from underwater cameras around the coast of Wales.
Data from hours of footage needs to be logged to help researchers identify the different types of species and hopefully get the clearest picture yet of what's at the bottom of the sea.
And check this out, so the Natural History Museum actually announced that they discovered 351 species in 2022.
A huge range of plants and animals have been named, from moss, animals and dinosaurs to stick insects and minerals, and an impressive 85 new species of wasps have been discovered.
Now, most of us have probably watched a Premier League game in the stadium or even on TV, right? But wouldn't it be great to get that little bit closer to the action?
Maybe even take over all the coverage, replace the reporters and even the commentators.
And thanks to Sky Sports, that's exactly what just happened.
Hi, I'm Delilah at Brentford versus Liverpool, but this isn't any ordinary football game. Come with me as I go behind the scenes. For this special coverage of the match, host Kelly Cates is joined by young fans from each team to join in with the reporting, interviewing and even commentating.
Let's do this.
You're from Denmark. Can you teach us how to say goal in Danish?
I can try. Goal is mål.
Mål.
Well done, you.
Premier League Juniors is all about getting young people from across the country involved in football and maybe even finding some future Sky Sports pundits.
Best presenters I've ever worked with. That was amazing.
Say that a bit louder.
So Delilah, can you see yourself going into football commentating when you're older?
I'd probably want to play football a bit first, but then after a while I'd probably maybe take up doing a bit of commentating.
So how was the atmosphere inside the stadium?
Oh, well, first of all, it was loud. The atmosphere was pretty exciting, but there was a little bit of tension in there as well.
Well, it sounds like a good day overall.
Yeah, definitely. I never got the opportunity to do that before, so I was very grateful when I got told it, and I was just so excited.
Well, thank you so much for your time, Delilah, and we'll be seeing you soon, probably.
Yeah.
See you later.
Bye.
Bye.
So, did you think it was fake or fact that this British island celebrates Christmas 12 days after the rest of the world?
It's a fact. The tiny island of Fula off the coast of Scotland is only 3.5 miles long and home to just 28 people. They follow an ancient calendar, which means Christmas Day is celebrated on the 6th of January and New Year's Day is on the 13th.
For more info on how to spot fake news, head to our webpage and check out our I Don't Get It explainer.
And there's also details of how to get in touch with us if you want to report for FYI on your story. Even better, get your school to set up an FYI News Club. More details of how on first.news/FYI.
See you next time.
Bye!